Goeiedag, welcome. My name is Amarenske and I will now do a review of Anatomy of a Darkened Heart by Christie Stratos, which is a psychological suspense in the Victorian era. It's part 1 in the Dark Victoriana collection, written by her. And I will give a synopsis in my own words, but I will first read what's on the back. A pair of eyes underlined in wary darkness and punctuated with a knowing stare. These are not the normal eyes of a newborn baby. Abigail Delilah is the firstborn of 3 Whitestone children. And she is the most regretted. But is it really her fault? She can't help the revelation of father's wretched secret coincides with her birth. She can't help the fear she feels during mother's psychological and physical assaults. And as the shadows grow stronger over her soul and the noose of pain tightens around her neck, Abigail will find out which is stronger, her family's wicked assumptions about her or her true self. So this is a psychological suspense about Abigail Delilah. By the way, the names are purposefully chosen by the mother as in a way to be like a good Christian child, as well as like the most ugly, heinous things, which Delilah for some reason seems to be like a very unclean name. And it indeed starts with Abigail's birth, when she's very, very young and her mother constantly mistreats her. Even when her other siblings are born, but she does not get why, and like it's not the most subtle things either. There is stuff happening like she is hit, she has been threatened with a knife to be killed if she tells certain things. She is locked in her room, and like her mother is just completely psychotic. It seems it's so dark. And the first time I read it, because I have read this book 2 times, the first time I read it, in the beginning I had no clue what was actually going on, what this book was about, even though I had of course read the description. The second time around I had I knew what was going on, and this book takes such dark twists. And it has been done very well. In the beginning, the first time I wrote a review and I had to rate this, I did not really know what to rate it, but when I was writing the review I realized, because it actually made me cry, and not because it is so gorgeously written, but because the emotions and the stuff that's happening in here, I could feel the psychological parts happening to me, because my father has not been the most, how do you say it, it verged on emotional and psychological abuse sometimes. What he did. He did not even know he was doing it, I think, most of the time, or how severe it was what he was actually doing. And that is what's happening here. Her mother has no clue she is doing stuff wrong. She blames the child. And as Abigail grows up, she blames her sister for being loved more by her mother, but her brother and sister both see that Abigail is actually extremely mistreated, and they don't know where it comes from. They can't help it. And in the beginning you actually side with the mother against the father, because the father has done all kinds of stuff to the mother that were totally unwarranted. But at a certain point you start to think, was that actually the case? Because you have diary entries, you have from the father's and the mother's perspective, the diary entries from the father's perspective, and in the later parts from the son's perspective. Then you have story entries from Abigail's perspective, and at a certain point from the sister and the brother too. And then also from the nanny. And you see all the stuff that's happening through multiple sets of eyes, which is really interesting. And I thought it was written really atmospherically. I don't know if this is actually a debut novel, it doesn't seem to be. But it doesn't matter because I really enjoyed not only the contents, though well enjoy. It was triggering. It has severe trigger warnings for if you are either mentally or psychologically or physically abused. Like it is not a light read. Like it's very, very, very dark. It's very suspenseful. You don't know what is actually going on, what is going to happen. You're getting more and more afraid of the mother as the time goes on, but you also like start worrying about the father and Abigail herself. Her brother and sister not so much, but it's a little bit dubious what is going on, and it becomes more darker the more you read it. And I thought the structure and the way it was written with beautiful prose but without all the unnecessary similes that you sometimes see in books. Perfectly done. It read easily and quickly for me, and I'm a very slow reader, but this book reads so quickly and it remains a favorite of all time, I think for a long time. So I totally recommend you read it. For the writing, unless you are triggered by abusive situations, but read this if you want something that's different and original, because this definitely is. The characters are realistic and like multifaceted. The writing is good, and it's a short little book of only 200 pages. So what more could you want from a good story? But for now I say, read this. Thank you for watching and on tot de keer.